Well, hello folks, and welcome to Greg's Vintage Workshop. So I think we're going to start on this radio. This is the GE transistor radio that I bought in Goldsboro, North Carolina last month at a little antique store. They were asking, I believe it was $19 for it. I wound up walking out there with it for about $12.50, so I didn't feel too bad about it. The tag actually said it works. Whether or not it does is another thing. We'll probably go with, I don't usually plug stuff like this in right off the bat, but since it said it did, I think I'm going to do that. But let me get you set up in a tripod and we'll see what we can do here. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this tie wrap off of here. This whole thing's pretty nasty looking. Cord's nasty looking. Radio's nasty looking. We will see in the picture here if this thing does anything. If it does, the extent of this is probably going to be cosmetic and recap.
Leader who simply wanted opportunity for all people, didn't want the check to be returned, and because he wanted people to be judged on their character, not on their skin color. This guy is doing the exact opposite. To do that on MLK Day, if your kid goes there, your thoughts on that? 888-941-PAX, joepax.com. Stay right.
Obviously the switches need to be lubricated and cleaned.
Bartiromo, and this is the Fox Business Report. All Wall Street, the major averages tumbling on.
That was FM apparently. I can barely read this face here. Okay, so it does work. Look like AM and FM both were working, but rather shabbily. So obviously we got to clean these switch pots and we got to recap it. So I'm going to get you on the overhead tripod. We'll take another look at this thing a little closer. Okay. So you can see, I was talking about on an earlier video when I had showed the stuff that I had gotten, how lousy the top is. It's supposed to look like wood grain. Here's the side. The side doesn't look too bad. Actually, the side looks really good. It's got some paint speckles on there. You can see that, and that you can probably see that. And this side's not half bad either. Got dirty and marred. The gold parameters pretty bad. The lens is pretty bad. Right. The front's not too bad. So you're gonna get your typical dust bunny cobwebs down there. So if we look at this thing, if I can get it in focus for you, it's a GE model. Looks like, I get my magnifier I can see here. T2259D, T2259D. I actually did quite a bit of research online and could not find a schematic for this anywhere. I put feelers out to even people over in Europe, and consensus is this was probably made in Japan, and there's probably not a good schematic in existence. If any of my viewers are aware of one, can find one, certainly I'd be interested in it. But so that's the back. Like I said, the cord is actually very, very stiff. It's not necessarily cracking yet, but it is very stiff, so I will definitely replace this cord with a newer cord. So I'm going to go ahead and take the cord off of it now. You see it's non-polarized cord. Like I said, it's stiff, it's shot. I'll go ahead and cut it off right now, so we don't have to worry about it after that. I'll put it in my trash. So, let's see. I think the next step we're going to do is pull the knobs off, or attempt to pull the knobs off. Let's see if they will come off. They all look the same. If they're going to come off, they're not going to come off without a little bit of a struggle. So let me get a small screwdriver and see if we can get something to come up without breaking anything. That one came off. There's one. I need to actually get me a plastic. Looks like there's a bushing in there I'll have to be careful with, because that one's coming out. I snapped it back in. This last one is kind of countersunk. I don't know if I'm going to get underneath that. I might have to. There we go. I think I got underneath it. Yep. Okay. Let's see if we can get that on up. There we go. All right. Interesting. So that actually has like a bezel bushing on it. I didn't see that on those other two. The other two don't have that bezel bushing. That one does. That's interesting. I wonder if the bushing stayed inside the case on these other ones. I'll have to look at that as I get it apart. I'm going to get these in a baggie. Let me go get a baggie. In my baggie, put the knobs in there. So now let's take another look at this. We got the back comes off, obviously. It looks like the bottom comes off, obviously. I think I'm going to take the bottom off first. And go from there. May just be a bottom. It probably is, but I got to get it off to clean it anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and take it off. I saw one of these radios on eBay when I was looking for a schematic. They wanted like $15 for it, which wasn't a bad price, but they also wanted like $15 to ship it, and there was no way I was paying $30 for something I already had. And apparently it works. It just needs to be a recap anyway. That really needs cleaned. So let's set that over there. Put these screws in the bag. Alright. Dial string was very stiff when I was turning that as well, so that's obviously needing to be lubricated in there. So let's go ahead and take the back screws out. Let's see what we get. those are all the same length. Nope, the two backs are longer than the two fronts. That makes sense because the housing's tapered, bigger at the bottom than the top. Put those in a baggie. Alright, so the front's trying to come loose from the back. So let's do it this way, see what happens. It's probably the cord that is holding this right now. I don't want to force it. Let me see what's going on with that. So it's got something flopping around in there right at the moment. Some sort of a hook. That can't belong in there. How on earth did it get inside there? Hold on, let me show you what it is so I can get it in there and get my hand in there. Get it out. That's interesting. And this. It's hard, but I think it was originally a piece of foam. I don't want to snap it, but it's hard as a rock. And I got to figure out how, without breaking something, to get that cord. I see it. Okay, let me cut that cord. You see down in there? That cord's in the way and it's holding it, and it is stiff as a board, so I'm going to cut it anyway. We got to put a new cord in it. There we go. Alright. And I see something was off one of those knobs. Look how filthy the inside of that case is. That is like disgusting. And that cord is very, very hard. To figure out what holds that cord in there, I see a little piece of plastic in there. It may be one of those grommets that separate and squish the cord. If so, I'll probably never get it out of there. I'll have to get a new one. Okay. Let's move that to the side. And let's get a gander at what we got going on here. So, got an electrolytic right here. 160 volt. Can't see the microfarads that it is. We also have a little electrolytic in there. Let me get something I can point this stuff out to you guys. Alright, so I see an electrolytic right here. I think that's one in there, or it could be that could be a transistor. I can't see really. And this is a cap here as well. Disc capacitor. Let's see if I can zoom you guys in a little closer here. Alright. So I see electrolytic in here, one here, looks like one here, obviously that one. Got the transformer. I see a bunch of them down here. Get where you can see. One here. One here. Quite a few transistors on there. There, 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 there. Obviously we have an antenna. The speaker. Looks like there's been some heat in here for sure. Either that or it was in a smoking environment possibly, and it's just smoke and soot. So again, it plays, so I'm not going to be too super concerned with the transistors and such. Nor will I probably mess around very much with the pots since I have no schematic. We'll recap it and see what we get, and if I wind up having to do some adjustment, then we'll worry about that then. Tuning cup at least doesn't look cracked that I can see. The wires aren't too bad stiff, other than the power cord. I think it's because we're going to do a recap, switch clean out. So here's the one pot. Here's our tuning. We're going to have to get freed up. That's our switch. AM/FM switch. I'm sorry if I'm not showing you guys very good. I'm probably not doing it. If I'm looking outside of the camera, I should be looking inside the camera with you guys. And a couple of big resistors in there. We'll check the resistors. And that's what we got. So let me get a little bit more of this apart, and we'll see what we can do with this thing. One of the things I noticed when remember I told you how stiff the dial cord was? I want to get this apart right here. They're so stiff. This wheel here is not attached. This wheel here, this pulley, is actually supposed to mount right here, I believe. This cord is like a banjo string. I don't know if somebody's had this thing off and they tried to stiffen it up because it was slipping or what, but it was so tight that it snapped that off. And so I'm going to have to get that figured out. Let's go ahead and get this thing off of here. I see a few screws holding it on. See how much of this we can take off. When I get this out of here, I might actually put them back in place just so that I know they can back in the right spots. Alright, let's see if that's everything. Probably still has a screw someplace that I can't see. Yep, there it is right there. Right there's the screw. And that's going to come up other than the wires on the speaker, which I can unplug, I hope. Nope, they're soldered on. But you know, I got a ton of wire right there, so I am just going to cut those loose and we'll solder them back. when we're ready, because I've got a ton of wire over here in this bunch right here. Alright, that way we can lift that whole works up and off of there, like that. Alright. I see some dust and dirt on the speaker, but all in all, that speaker doesn't look bad. I'll pull it out when I'm ready, just so I can clean without having to worry about, you know, it getting damaged. But I'm not taking it out till then. Alright, I'll move this over to the side now. Actually, I think I'm going to set it in the case, something like that, just so the cat doesn't step on it. I like the way I blame it on the cat, because obviously it'd be me probably doing something like stepping on it. Alright, let's see if we can take a little bit closer look at this now that we've got this apart. So we got a spring tensioner there for the string. You can see how it's wrapped. You see we have apparently a pointer for both AM and FM. Boy, that thing is so stiff. It's probably the tuner is the stiff part. It might not be the tuner though, because it could just be this is really stiff here. So the dial's got a little dirt on it, but it's not too bad. Most of the staining and terribleness is on the outer piece. So I can get that board off. This board, sorry if I'm making you get dizzy. I should be able to get this board out. And this board off to be able to get to those caps. Clean this up a little bit. Let me see about getting this other board out of here. And we'll come back. Okay, I wasn't recording, but what I just did was I just pulled that out of there. Before I could pull it out, I had to snip this black wire right here from this black wire right here. It goes down right here. And the two little rollers that were originally here, they came out. And this pulled apart pretty quickly. This is the switch actuator for that switch. And it appears to have something keeping it in place there. Okay, so let's go ahead and move this out of the way. Attempt to. And that red wire there, I could easily snip that as well. I'm going to do that just so I can free this up. So this is the way this thing is tensioned. There is a spring that has got this loop, put you in camera, this string right here looped over the hook. The other string is right here. That's how that spring is put in there. Take a couple pictures of this and then try and pay attention when I get it apart. Okay, so that string came from that side there, bottom pulley, come over to this side, bottom pulley, and it came around just the bottom and just up to that spring, and it fed through that slot onto that spring. And the other string, that loop went over that little hook right there, and it just goes around the bottom the one time and back over here under that roller and over the top of this roller. Over here, get where I can see it. It's not on it right now, but the string originally was on that lower pulley, and then wraps back up, and it's the one that's on the bottom of that. So looking at it from this angle, it looks like that string wrapped clockwise from this end, with the other end coming off the top, and it looks like it's got 3 to 4 windings on it, and then came back under the top one and over those. Alright, so where we're at right now is I've got a lot more of this disassembled. I just got through getting the dial string off of this. I took a bunch of pictures, and obviously got that board out. Alright, it originally slid into this slot right here, and the one over here on the other side right here. I'm getting ready to take that board off. I cut a couple wires. I cut that red one because I had plenty of it. I cut this white one because I had plenty of that. That goes over here to the ground. And I'm going to try to keep from having to cut any of these wires if at all possible. I cut this black one, not the antenna. Antenna's still intact. This one was coming up here to that wire. I had to get it loose so I could see what I was doing. And let me get the rest of these out. Alright folks, so I've got this piece off. Got this little piece of cardboard that went underneath that board right there. Right here is where that other pulley stud broke off. I'm going to have to figure out the best way to do that. I don't want to just glue that back on there because I don't think it'll hold. I think it'll have too much tension on it. I'm thinking I may have to try and drill that and put a little screw in there with a bushing for that pulley set to ride on. Anyway, I get it figured out. This is what trips this switch. It's made, really doesn't look like it can come out. I don't know that it has to because the switch is right there on the board, so I can clean that pretty easily. So next step's going to be to scrub these boards off a little bit and see if I can recap it and start making some repairs. I'm going to get the boards cleaned up a little bit. We'll be back.